If you have a limited planting space or plenty of planting space but soil that you don't necessarily want to plant in, an easy way to improve and increase the size of your garden space is through the use of hay bales. Guten Yardening, everybody! I want to start this video by making something really clear, that today I am actually talking about hay bales and not straw bales, although many of you will say that you probably have planted in straw bales before, or that's your preference. That's perfectly fine, but today we're going to talk about how we're using hay bales, which you can see are now lining the entire back of our biggest yardening space. This is our main yard in here, but these hay bales are lining the back of that entire space, and they've been out here all winter long getting ready for us to plant now that it's heading into spring. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why we're using this hay, how we've placed it, etc., and how we're preparing it for the vegetables we're about to plant. Now, I want to first acknowledge something that many of you probably already know, and that is that hay bales do have more seeds in them. There are more varieties of grass in here than straw, and so yes, we may have more seeds that we have to deal with, but we also know where we got this hay. We know that there were no herbicides or anything like that sprayed on the hay. It's all natural. We got it from a farmer. It was pretty inexpensive, about $4 per bale, and so we're able to use this understanding that what we're putting our vegetables in is going to be perfectly healthy and not harm them. And yes, we may have to do a little bit more weeding, but if you take a look at one of our earlier videos where we did a hay bale salad bar, we planted lots of different greens in there and had no problem with weeds whatsoever. So again, we'll take the good with the bad. And this will work just as well as does your straw. Again, you may have a little bit more weeding, but that's not too big of a problem when we're talking about great vegetable growth. Now, if we look down the row at the hay bales that we've planted, you can see that there's some unevenness, but that's because this is actually planted on a bit of a slope. And we didn't do anything really to fix the ground other than to level these out a little bit with some bricks underneath, just to keep the hay bales as straight as we could. One of the real benefits of a hay bale garden is that there's not really a ton of prep underneath. We've just brought the hay bales in and we've placed them, as you can see, cut side up. And what I mean by cut side up is exactly what it sounds like. Where the hay was harvested, this is the end that's cut, that's exposed, that allows the absorption of water. So as rain falls, you can see it's already starting to break apart here. As rain falls, it can fall down in here and be absorbed. And it's also much easier to work in this. If you try to do it on its side with the string end up, you'd have a much harder time trying to work through this hay. All right, let's start by talking about how we're doing a sort of shortened or condensed version of conditioning these hay bales. For one thing, unlike many of the videos where they talk about spending about 2 weeks to condition the bales, those are typically for bales that are brand new. And in our case, what we have is months of conditioning already taking place, where they've been decomposing. And I'll show you what I mean. Now, when I talk about the winter time and the rain and everything else coming in and starting the decomposition process, I'm not kidding. I mean, these bales are nice and loose. So if you're starting from a fresh bale, you should add some nitrogen in order to start the decomposition process. But since we allowed it to stay out here all winter long, that's a step we're going to skip. We're going to go ahead and move to the step where we add our fertilizer. And I'm going to go ahead and fertilize this bale, and then we'll move over to a bale that I've already fertilized previously so we can get to the next step. But the recommendation is a cup, just about a cup of 888 or 10-10-10 fertilizer. Really, whatever you have on hand, I'm sure will be fine, although a complete fertilizer is preferable. And there we go, a cup spread out over the top of the bale and then watered in. And I'm going to water this in with some compost tea. We're lucky enough that we have the ability to access some of this compost tea that we've been making. And so we're just watering it in gently with some compost tea, though of course just regular water will work as well. We're also supposed to get some rain later on today, and so that will help water it in too. Now this to me is where it starts to get fun, because we start to dig in. This is a bale that I have previously fertilized, and so I'm digging in here now just with a nice little trowel. You can use whatever you have. Digging in here and getting enough space opened up so we can start putting our soil mix right over top. You'll notice there's plenty of room in here now. There's lots of space, lots of air in here, which of course the roots need as they're growing down in here. I'm going to add my first layer of the soil. Now the mix that we're using on top of here is one that we have used successfully before in our hay bales, and that we typically use in our potting mixes outdoors. So we've got some peat moss in here, although I think that could probably be replaced by a coco cure if you're interested in something like that. It's got some really nice organic matter in here from some great organic compost. There are some worm castings in here as well, and then you can see there's some vermiculite. So we have all of that, and then on top of it we've added some azomite, a little bit more of that organic fertilizer, that general purpose organic fertilizer to this as well. So we're creating a nice little surface area for our plants to get started in. And I'm just going to spread that across the whole top, the whole surface of this bale. And I'm going to start pressing it in just a little bit so you can see it's filling in all the spaces, creating a really nice growing surface. And press it right down in there, and then I'm going to add my next layer. Doesn't that look nice? I think that looks exceptional. It's just an easy, inexpensive growing surface. It's a modified raised bed, I guess we could call it, in many ways. All right, I keep adding the layer of soil, keep pressing it in, and we got some nice depth to it now, so there's plenty of fertilizer in there at the start. You know, as you're growing, if you see the need to fertilize, you can follow the directions, add fertilizer as needed. But what we're really creating here is a nice growing environment, one that we'll likely be able to use for 1 to 2 years, and then the hay will decompose. It'll keep decomposing, and then we can take that and use that later on, because it's going to create more great growing medium. And so this is a recyclable, I guess that's a great way of putting it, this is a recyclable growing space that can be used over and over again in its different forms. And now we've got some great depth, really some fantastic depth here for our roots to get started in. And as the growing season goes on, this will continue to get better and better as a growing medium. And you can see right here, I mean, I can dig down now. I've got 3 or 4 inches of depth, perfect for a transplant. I could also, of course, plant seeds directly in the top if I want to. And then we have another great growing area. So really it's about deciding what you want to plant. Now when it comes to deciding what we actually want to plant in each of these bales, well, we have some decisions to make. But one thing we learned last year was that we should probably wait to plant our root crops until after we've had something else growing in here. Again, just a little bit more time for the decomposition and the breakdown of the hay inside. That way the roots have a much easier time. After all, you can see this is our hay bale salad bar from last year. You can see just how much it breaks down after only 1 season of growth. So if you wait just a little bit, something like this would be perfect for planting some root crops in. So if we want to start growing, let's say some more sweet potatoes or something like potatoes in these bales, the bales will be even better prepared after a little bit. So when you're making the decision about what you want to plant in your hay bales or your straw bales, maybe keep that in mind, that it might work best to plant something that's a shorter days to maturity plant that you can then work into something that's a root crop later on. Well, that's 1 bale down and a whole bunch more to go. But of course, this is the kind of work that we absolutely love doing here. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from what we're doing here today. If you have some opinions or thoughts about this, we'd love to hear from you, so go ahead and leave a comment. Don't forget to like the video. Remember to share and subscribe. And most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.